And of course, ordinary Russians should be asking how many Russian lives Putin is willing to sacrifice to feed his ambitions. If Russia continues down this path, it could, according to our estimates, create a new refugee crisis, one of the largest facing the world today, with as many as 5 million more people displaced by Russia's war of choice and putting pressure on Ukraine's neighbors. What we can do together today is make clear that Russia will pay an even steeper price if it continues this aggression.
The United Nations Security Council emergency session made it clear that Russia is waging this war on its own.
Russia is isolated. It has no support for the invasion of Ukraine.
President Putin chose to drop bombs on Kyiv, to force families to stuff their lives into backpacks and shelter in subway stations.
But Russia vetoed a demand to immediately withdraw all troops. The measure will now be taken to the full 193-member General Assembly, where only a simple majority is needed to pass.
A special emergency session of the UN General Assembly. All 193 member states will have the opportunity to express their views on the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
The United Nations General Assembly session witnessed it was the first such session in 40 years, a rare emergency session, only the 11th in United Nations history. It opened with the members observing a minute of silence for Ukraine.
Although Russian strikes are reportedly largely targeting Ukrainian military facilities, we have credible accounts of residential buildings, critical civilian infrastructure, and other non-military targets sustaining heavy damage. This escalating violence, which is resulting in civilian deaths, including children, is totally unacceptable. Enough is enough.
The Ukrainian ambassador accused Russia of killing hundreds of Ukrainians. The ambassador added that Russia is mounting an offensive while negotiations were still underway. Ukraine also called Russia's nuclear alert threat madness, quote-unquote.
President Zelensky today addressed an emergency session of the European Parliament.
We're fighting just for our land and for our freedom, despite the fact that all large cities of our country are now blocked. Nobody is going to enter and intervene with our freedom and country. And believe you me, every square of today, no matter what it's called, it's going to be called, as today, Freedom Square. In every city of our country. Nobody's going to break us. We're strong. We're Ukrainians. I'm happy that we have unified today, all of you, all the countries of the European Union. But I did not know, but this is the price they will have to pay. And it's a tragedy for me, a tragedy for every Ukrainian, tragedy for our state. I mean, this high price, very high price. Thousands of people who were killed, 2 revolutions, 1 war, and 5 days of full-scale invasion.
He received a standing ovation. Compare that response to this. There was a mass walkout from the United Nations Human Rights Council during a speech by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, during which he seemed to give a new justification for the invasion of Ukraine.
Today, the dangers that Zelensky's regime poses to neighboring countries and international security in general have increased significantly after the authorities based in Kyiv started playing dangerous games linked to plans to acquire their own nuclear weapons. We cannot but respond to this real danger.
UN has to take a very strong stance in defense of its own principles of the UN Charter, because what Russia did to Ukraine is an attack on the UN foundations, on the foundations of our cooperation. It's an attack on all 192 except Russia.
Ukrainian women and Ukrainian children are in deep fear because of bombs and missiles which are going from the sky. And Ukrainian people are desperately asking for the West to protect our sky. We are asking for the no-fly zone. We are saying in response that it will trigger World War III. But what is the alternative, Mr. Prime Minister? To observe how our children are, instead of planes, are protecting NATO from the missiles and bombs? What's the alternative for the no-fly zone? We have planes here, we have air defense system in Poland, in Romania. NATO has this air defense. At least this air defense could shield the Western Ukraine. NATO is not willing to defend because NATO is afraid of the World War III, but it is already started. And these are Ukrainian children who are there taking the hit. You're talking about more sanctions, Prime Minister, but Roman Abramovich is not sanctioned. He's in London. His children are not in the bombardments. His children are there in London. Putin's children are in Netherlands, in Germany, in mansions. Where are all these mansions seized? I don't see that. I see that my family members, that my team members are saying that we are crying. We don't have where to run. Well, this is what is happening, Prime Minister.
Look, I just want to say that I'm acutely conscious that there is not enough that we can do as the UK government to help in the way that you want. And I've got to be honest about that. And when you talk about the no-fly zone, as I said to Volodymyr Zelensky, I think a couple of times, unfortunately, the implication of that is that the UK and would be engaged in shooting down Russian planes, would be engaged in direct combat with Russia. That's not something that we can do or that we've envisaged. And I think the consequences of that would be truly very, very difficult to control.
A lot of people running and being refugees, pouring their things out into a refugee camp, and they were looking for food, opening cans and eating old soup and whatever. It was such a situation.
Europe is experiencing the fastest growing refugee crisis since World War II. According to the UN, 2 million refugees have left the country, and a spokesperson for UNICEF says that includes 1 million children.
As the Russian invasion intensifies in Ukraine, more than 2 million refugees have now fled the country, according to the United Nations. Ukrainian officials say humanitarian corridors have now opened to evacuate civilians from 5 key cities.
Civilians in Ukraine are desperate to flee the violence, with hundreds killed and hundreds more injured. Nearly 2 million refugees have now crossed the border, almost half of them children.
Hundreds of people took shelter in a subway, really making it a makeshift bomb shelter, taking shelter from those explosions. The Red Cross and the UN's refugee agency saying that they are prepared to help the people trying to flee.
Arriving in neighboring countries with little more than a suitcase. In Romania, in Moldova, where they've built a tent city, women and children finally safe with a warm meal, a place to rest. But as the waves of refugees keep coming, a flood of kindness. Hundreds of volunteers handing out soup, offering rides, and a place to stay.
Take a look at this video of people appearing to pack what they can, leave via bus, train, or car.
In their thousands, they descended on the central railway station, trying to get seats on any train heading south. Guards firing into the air, trying to maintain order. It rarely works with people already traumatized. It was chaotic and desperate, but that is what it's like here now. The fear of the unknown is what's so difficult for the people. Ukraine is holding its breath while the world watches on.
Neighboring countries, Hungary, Poland, Slovakia, Germany, Romania, the Czech Republic, they are all prepared to help those refugees.
A lot of people running and being refugees, pouring their things out into a refugee camp, and they were looking for food, opening cans and eating old soup and whatever. It was such a situation. Opening cans and eating old soup and whatever. It was such a situation.
Hundreds of volunteers handing out soup.
Well, here are his people, protesting in the streets of Moscow just today, under the threat of arrest. They're chanting, "No more war." And this is St. Petersburg, hundreds of miles away. As expected and true to historical pattern, the police arrested more than 1,600 protesters across Russia.
This rally was just outside the White House in Lafayette Park. People around the world also showing their support for Ukraine. Demonstrators gathered in central London to denounce the actions of Russian President Vladimir Putin. And a similar scene was in Rome, people taking to the streets, waving flags and banners there. And in the country of Georgia, take a look at this, thousands protesting in the capital of Tbilisi. They're calling for an end to Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Support Ukraine! USA support Ukraine! USA support Ukraine!
This is a deliberate, cold-blooded and long-planned invasion. Despite its litany of lies, denials and disinformation, the Kremlin's intentions are clear for the world to see.
Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences. This is the beginning of a Russian invasion of Ukraine, so I'm going to begin to impose sanctions in response. Who in the Lord's name does Putin think gives him the right to declare new so-called countries on territory that belong to his neighbors? This is a flagrant violation of international law and demands a firm response from the international community.
President Putin launched the greatest threat to European stability since World War II.
History will judge President Putin as harshly as the world condemns him today. Today, he cements his place in the ranks of the reviled European dictators.
Innumerable missiles and bombs have been raining down on an entirely innocent population. A vast invasion is underway.
We condemn this barbaric attack and the cynical arguments to justify it. It is President Putin who is bringing war back to Europe.
Ukraine says more than 2,000 civilians are confirmed dead, though the real toll could be much higher and only the beginning.
The Messiah is coming, blessed people. May you be wise. May your wisdom not fail you on this one. Because remember, eternity is a very long time. Life on this earth is being dismantled. On every occasion when I come before you and speak, you the nations of the earth, you should rush and repent. Run and kneel down and repent and receive Christ and be holy and prepare. Life on the earth, essentially the Lord is saying he has brought the entire earth under the jurisdiction of the words of the tongue of his two prophets. That is very clear now. This should cause you to take gravitas, take gravity at my words, and begin to repent and prepare for the coming of the Messiah. Everything that needs to be spoken, everything that ought to be spoken in preparing the way for the glorious coming of the Messiah, I have spoken. And I've been faithful to speak exactly as God the Father has instructed. May those who have ears repent and prepare the way for the coming of the Messiah. Thank you. Thank you indeed. The Lord bless you. Well, blessed people, the Lord Jehovah has spoken with me. The Lord has spoken to me about an ocean coming out. I see people running. There is a tsunami that's going to come. That means there's going to be an earthquake that will hit the bottom of an ocean. And I see people running. I see them running for their life. And I see the ocean coming out. And a lot of people running. The tsunami chasing them. And they're running, trying to lock their... He has put me there and I've run for my life with them. Not the way the Lord speaks to his servants. And so, after doing so, then the Lord brought me to stand near that ocean. And he asked me to strike that ocean with the judgment of the Lord. And then, exactly as I saw the ocean chasing them, the ocean began to chase people strictly at the word of my tongue. I passed the judgment of the Lord on that nation, and the ocean came out. Those people are light-skinned people. That area is light-skinned people. So there is a very severe storm that is going to come from the ocean. I do not know whether it's an earthquake strike the bottom of an ocean or it's coming as an ocean storm. But a lot of people are running. I have been running. The Lord put me there. I ran for my life. Together with them, they were trying to lock their shops, lock their houses, and people are running for their lives.
I see a tsunami coming to the earth.
Ninaona tsunami ikija duniani.
I see a tsunami coming to the earth soon.
Ninaona tsunami ikija duniani hivi karibuni.
This is CNN Breaking News.
We begin this morning with breaking news. A tsunami advisory is now in effect for the entire U.S. West Coast and Alaska. This comes after an underwater volcanic eruption overnight in the South Pacific. Look at this video. Incredible satellite images showing a massive ash cloud and shock waves. The eruption happened near the island nation of Tonga. A tsunami, as you can see in this video, has already hit the largest island there, sending waves flooding into the capital, inundating the coastline.
Tsunamis were detected not just in the Pacific, but in the Atlantic, Caribbean, and Mediterranean as well.
The series of dramatic events started when scientists registered a 5.8 magnitude earthquake in Tonga. The next day, scientists recorded a second 4.5 magnitude earthquake. And the volcano exploded.
volcano spewed mushroom-shaped smoke that reached a height of 40 kilometers during its eruption.
Tongans are on the beach to film the first waves hit the coast. They record the tsunami as it surges through streets near the capital Nuku'alofa, catching some people inside, while others scramble for higher ground. Only minutes before the waves arrive, Tongans hear the Hunaha'pai volcano explode.
A second eruption Sunday triggered tsunami warnings in the region.
This woman is in a church in the village of Patanata. She's talking to friends on her phone. They tell her to leave. I can't go, she says. The water's too high outside. The church is right on the beach, and more waves wash inside as she records. Others want to save property. Several try to free up this car on the beach. But then they scramble back as a wave takes the car. These pictures are from the New Zealand High Commission.
Described as the most violent eruption captured on satellite, with the equivalent force of a magnitude 5.8 earthquake. At sea level, the eruption resembled a mushroom cloud, a mass of steam, ash and rock surging out of the ocean 20 kilometres into the air. Within 20 minutes, a rush of waves hit the tiny island nation. Startled locals rushed to find higher ground as water crashed its way through. A river flooding streets and buildings, including this church. Some were caught out by the rising tide. This volcano erupted with a rude shock in the late afternoon local time.
My hand is shaking. What are we gonna do?
There is a tsunami that's going to come. That means there's going to be an earthquake that will hit the bottom of an ocean, strike the bottom of an ocean.
The series of dramatic events started when scientists registered a 5.8 magnitude earthquake in Tonga. The next day, scientists recorded a second 4.5 magnitude earthquake. And the volcano exploded.
An underwater volcanic eruption on Saturday triggered tsunami warnings across the Pacific Rim.
That massive undersea volcanic eruption and the tsunami that followed.
An underwater volcano erupted off the islands of Tonga. It caused an enormous tsunami with waves that travelled as far as New Zealand, Australia, Japan, Peru and the US.
The violent eruption of an underwater volcano near Tonga in the South Pacific triggered a tsunami that furiously hit the coasts of this small nation and set off alarms in other countries.
A tsunami warning has been issued for parts of eastern Australia after an underwater volcano erupted off Tonga in the South Pacific.
This once bustling port, now buried in ash and dust. A lush green neighborhood, now just a sea of gray. The island that surrounded the underwater volcano before its eruption, now seemingly gone. The ash that now covers the islands, creating a crisis.
I see a tsunami coming to the earth soon.
Ninaona tsunami ikija duniani hivi karibuni.
Prelude to a violent eruption. On Friday, the Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai volcano sent plumes of smoke and ash shooting into the sky. In an explosion so powerful, it sent shockwaves around the world.
And from this tiny speck in the Pacific Ocean, shockwaves across the globe. Tsunami warnings were issued for Pacific islands including Fiji, Samoa, Hawaii and Norfolk and Lord Howe Islands, along with the Australian East Coast, Japan, the US and Canadian Pacific Coast. The impact stretched to New Zealand, Ecuador, Peru and Chile. Those shockwaves travelled at more than 1,000 kilometres an hour, reaching almost 7,000 kilometres to Perth, with the sonic boom heard in Alaska, almost 10,000 kilometres away. Tsunami sirens were heard in Ecuador. A 2-metre tidal surge and large waves washing ashore sank a number of boats and damaged others at a marina in New Zealand's far north.
This boat sunk all through the harbour. It's unbelievable.
So fierce was the eruption that tsunami warnings were issued across the Pacific, including in Samoa, Australia, Japan, Hawaii, Chile, and the US Pacific coast. Evacuations were ordered in parts of Japan after forceful waves were detected, and Hawaii was slammed by waves of up to 2 feet.
Well, the world has seen and felt the shockwaves of a massive underwater volcano on the doorstep of the Pacific island of Tonga.
This volcanic eruption in Tonga was so powerful that the impact was felt 10,000 kilometers away in Peru. The waves battered boats in Japan and New Zealand. Floods lashed Fiji, Chile, and Ecuador too.
From Japan to New Zealand, littered with sunken fishing boats, the powerful waves tossing them like toys.
The underwater eruption was so powerful that it was detected around the world.
Storm stretching from Albury through to Port Macquarie.
We turn now to that rare tsunami advisory for the entire North American West Coast from Alaska to California. And take a look at these images from Pacifica, California, showing waves crashing into the shoreline.
And I see the ocean coming out and a lot of people running, the tsunami chasing them. The Lord has spoken to me about an ocean coming out. I see people running.
This desperate mum then rushes to gather her children.
Everybody get up. Let's go. Just get up. Get up.
Her anxiety rising with every passing second.
The volcano is erupting. It keeps erupting. Get up. Let's go far from here.
And police are asking people to move to higher ground.
In Peru, tsunami waves crash through a market, washing away stalls and goods, sending panicked shoppers running in fear of what might come next.
tsunami advisory in effect. Stay out of the water, off the beach, and away from the coast.
On January 15, 2022, the Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai volcano in the nation of Tonga produced its most powerful eruption ever recorded.
Scientists are starting to take the measure of the monster volcanic eruption that rocked the South Pacific Kingdom of Tonga earlier this month. The high end of the Tonga volcano estimate is equivalent to about 1,200 Hiroshima bombs.
The eruption is one of the loudest eveners to occur in more than 100 years. Another study has revealed that the eruption created ripples in Earth's atmosphere. Researchers said that they had never seen